Welcome back, everyone, to another episode of Blind Boys Politics with your Friday morning news show. And as tradition now on this show, Chris will read us the weather.
In Los Angeles, it's raining, 55, and a nice sunny weekend. Houston, Texas, partly cloudy, 62, with some rain tomorrow. Chicago, Illinois, partly cloudy, 30, and snow all weekend. New York City, sunny, 25, sunny weekend with snow moving in Sunday night.
Well, it definitely looks like the cold is starting to settle in here across the country. I mean, 55 in Los Angeles. That's the lowest we've seen since we started doing our little weather updates here. By a long shot,
Did
too.
you hear it was snowing in Malibu?
Jeez. I mean, there was the huge snowstorm that moved across the Midwest the other day. And that was pretty insane.
And now it's coming to us this week.
Yeah. And we've already gotten a little snow this week, and now we're preparing for more.
Daddy inches already this week. What's another 3 feet? Got it once this year. Get it another time.
No worries. We'll handle it just as well. But Chris, we got a lot to get through, but I do want to ask you how you are doing on I almost said Friday morning, but it's not actually Friday morning.
Well, it is Friday, so I am doing pretty well. Busy week.
Yeah.
Eventful week for the news. That might be a tad bit of an understatement, but eventful. How are you doing?
Well, I'm alive, so that's a nice start. It's been one of my busiest weeks in quite some time. This was the last week of the quarter, and as we've established on this show before, when it comes to schoolwork especially, I procrastinate just a bit. So this week has been testing my limits as far as how much I can get done in a single week. But getting to the end of the week,
slowly getting you to work on your procrastination.
Yeah, I mean, it's honestly no joke. Going through it this past week and dealing with all this work and everything has actually shown me that I can handle stress better than I thought I could. So I'm kind of excited.
That does not help my efforts.
No, it does though, because one of the main reasons I would procrastinate in the first place is because whenever I would try to get work done, if I wanted to actually try to get work done on time or whatever, I would get very stressed and very overwhelmed very easily, and then I just leave it till last minute, which of course obviously that ends up in a stress fest when I do end up finally doing it at last minute, but I digress.
Some of my family members don't like me because I can do both. I can get it done 3 weeks early, and then I can be doing it last minute, and it comes out the same exact way.
Yeah.
They're like, I hate you because what you just did in 45 minutes, it would have took me a week.
Yeah, I'm the same way.
Some people like to call it magic. Some people like to call it luck. You decide. But getting into some news, there is a national security threat. What that national security threat is domestic violence. The Biden administration does see this as a national security threat, and they are doing something about it. We've seen all over social media things, but this all came to a head on the attack of the Capitol on January 6th.
This isn't really anything new. The FBI has warned Congress, this was back in September, saying that in previous years, the most lethal violence comes from anti-government activists right here in the U.S. The White House says that, of course, it's important to protect our First Amendment rights, like free speech. However, violence is not exactly protected right. And the Biden administration has done a few things to try and combat this. For example, they have requested a complete fact-based analysis from the Department of National Intelligence, the FBI, and Homeland Security. This is on the current threat of these extremists living here in the US. Next, they want to build a data sharing operation between these government agencies to prevent fractalization. The President's National Security Council will take the information that they gather and will use it to create new policies and possibly new laws.
Moving right along, I'm sure everyone has heard of the Buy American, Made in American tax. I'm sure everyone's heard of that. Well, President Biden signed an executive order. Now, this is nothing new. Presidents have always signed executive orders for buying American. In recent years, President Obama and President Trump did have similar policies in place. President Biden is no different. He signed an executive order this week. Well, what does that exactly mean? Well, the US government spends $600 billion per year on contracts for services and goods. It would make sense that American companies and American workers with true American made goods should be awarded those contracts. But for some reason, the policies don't run efficiently. And part of the problem is the loopholes and lack of accountability that are in all of these policies.
So the Biden administration, President Biden himself, has been trying to take care of some of these problems, and some of the ways to address that comes in this executive order. So this executive order, some of the things in it, we see that they're closing the loopholes, so that you no longer, there's no longer allowing U.S. companies to offshore productions and jobs and still qualifying for the Made in America title. Next, this executive order will be tightening up the process to companies that allow these waivers. It'll also require all federal agencies to report on implementation of Biden's American-made order, and it will create a senior White House official to oversee this entire process.
Another reason their Buy American policies have been so spotty is because U.S. economists hate the policy. They say it increases costs and ultimately will cost the taxpayers more money in the long run.
Well, we move on from that and we come to some information about a travel ban. So President Biden has reinstated the travel ban along with several other restrictions for other international travelers. This time, the restrictions and the travel ban are focused on international travelers coming to the U.S. From places such as South Africa, United Kingdom, Ireland, Brazil, and 26 other European countries. Just to be clear, non-citizens from these countries cannot enter the United States.
The order suspends entry into the United States by many foreign nationals who have been in many of these countries within the last 14 days prior to entering the U.S. This does not, let me repeat, does not apply to U.S. citizens coming back home. So if you're a U.S. citizen in a country that does have a travel ban, you can come back as long as you're a U.S. citizen and have a negative COVID test.
So this is all part of a Biden administration plan in an attempt to slow the spread of COVID-19 and trying to, crack down on the new COVID-19 mutations that we have seen.
As of Tuesday, all general travelers coming into the United States must present a negative COVID test from a lab in the last 3 days of boarding the flight into the United States. The airline will not allow travelers onto the plane without one. There is no end date for this executive order as of yet. they will closely monitor the travel ban and readjust when needed.
Well, with talk surrounding COVID-19, you can almost definitely suspect that there will be some talk about the vaccine, and we do have some information about the COVID-19 vaccine for you here. So, President Biden announced on Tuesday, January 26th, that the US would be purchasing 200 million COVID-19 vaccine doses. The president also said that he has secured the commitments for these doses. Pfizer will be providing 100 million of these vaccine doses, while Moderna will be supplying the other 100 million. They are suspecting that these doses of the vaccine can be delivered by the summer of this year.
That means 300 million Americans can be fully vaccinated. You've probably found it difficult to get the vaccine if you are eligible for the groups that are now in eligibility, depending on your state. State governors say one of the reasons why is because they've had no way to know how much the federal government was going to give them, which made it hard to make a strategy for vaccination.
Part of the reason that everything got so mixed up was because there was no real accounting for the number of vaccines that the U.S. had in the federal stockpile. President Biden says that it stops now. Weekly state, tribe, and territory allotment will increase by 16% to 10 million doses a week minimum for the next 3 weeks. He also said that governors will know 3 weeks in advance how much vaccine they will receive.
As you know, President Biden has set a goal for 100 million people vaccinated in his first 100 days of office. He does warn deaths will be increasing in the near future. There is already 420,000 plus Americans have died from COVID-19, and he suspects this number to go up until more people are vaccinated. That's why there is such a rush to get more vaccines out. That's why he's asked Pfizer and Moderna to provide more vaccines. But moving right from vaccines to a COVID briefing, the White House has said they will give COVID briefings 3 times a week. If you're wondering who may be included, members from the Biden response team, doctors, and other experts.
So there was a briefing on Wednesday, the 27th. Some of these members included Dr. Anthony Fauci, Dr. Rochelle Lewinsky, the new CDC director, Dr. Marcella Nunez-Smith, coordinator in charge of racial equality, Jeff Zients, COVID response coordinator, as well as President Biden's top advisor, Andy Slavitt.
If you did not watch Wednesday's COVID-19 briefing, don't worry, we got you covered. They talked about the mutation strands from the UK, South Africa, and Brazil, which all of them are now in the United States. The real data on how COVID-19 is disproportionately hitting undeserved communities and communities of color, along with vaccine efficiency, especially with the new strands, along with the distribution plans.
The briefing was virtual and there was a lot of technical difficulties throughout, but why does this all matter to you? You might be interested in these briefings if you are interested or concerned about COVID-19. The briefings happen 3 times a week. Different members of the task force will rotate and appear on these briefings. They will be live streamed on the White House YouTube channel as well as all of their social media accounts.
Homeland Security did release a bulletin. The threat is more potential domestic violence. They say this threat could last for the next couple of weeks. DHS Secretary said ideology-motivated violent extremists with objectives to the exercise of governmental authority and the presidential transition, as well as other perceived grievances fueled by false narratives, could continue to mobilize and to incite or commit violence.
So the bulletin does not say that there's a specific threat that we need to be worried about, just that there is a heightened threat environment. DHS said that throughout 2020, domestic violence extremists, or DVE, targeted people with opposing views, have plotted and even carried out attacks on government facilities.
So, if you're wondering why this is happening, some of the motivations are COVID-19 restrictions, the 2020 election results, police use of force, ethnic and racial tensions, and some are now emboldened by the Capitol attack on January 6th. Yes, Homeland Security is doing everything they can to keep us all safe from these extremists, but there is a few things they are saying you can do as well to help. They are saying report any suspicious activity to the FBI, choose nonviolent ways to make your voices heard, avoid large crowds, beware of your surroundings, and be responsible for your own personal safety.
So we move right along, and now we have some information for you about climate change and the direction that that is heading in. So it's no longer seen as a policy. It has been changed to a national security concern. This is according to the executive orders that President Biden signed today on the day of recording. So he has two different sets of plans for, domestically, so within this country, and international. So we start out with his domestic plans. He plans to pause all new oil and natural gas leases on public land and offshore water until analysis is completed on permitting and purchasing process. He plans to protect up to 30% of the U.S. land and water by 2030. He also wants to work towards the goal for zero carbon emissions, that goal of which the aim is to have that done by 2050. He wants to do this while also creating well-paying union jobs to build modern, sustainable infrastructure. He also wants to begin a plan to phase in clean zero emissions vehicles for the federal fleet. This includes USPS.
On an international scale, President Biden has already rejoined the Paris Climate Accord. He also appointed John Kerry for special presidential envoy of Claire. He also demands climate change will be at the center of all foreign policies. This was also spoken about at the daily press conference that Jen Psaki holds Monday through Friday, and she invited John Kerry to one of them, and here is kind of the highlights of the climate change discussion.
The greatest cause of children being hospitalized every summer in the United States, we spend $55 billion a year on it, is environmentally induced asthma. Workers have been fed a false narrative. No surprise, right? For the last few years, they've been fed the notion that somehow dealing with climate is coming at their expense. No, it's not. The President of the United States has expressed in every comment he has made about climate the need to grow the new jobs that pay better, that are cleaner. That, I mean, you look at the consequences of black lung for a miner, for instance, and measure that against the fastest growing job in the United States before COVID was solar power technician. The same people can do those jobs.
But with all of that being said, throughout this episode, we've talked a lot about executive orders. That word has come up a lot recently. So we want to talk a little bit about executive orders, how they work, what kind of surrounds them. Executive orders, they do offer a lot of weight in the sense of power. But for these policies to become, long-term permanent policies, they still have to go through legislation. This means that they have to go through the House and the Senate to be made official law.
There will be a fight over all the executive orders that we have discussed today and some on Monday eventually. Regardless, President Biden has moved forward with several and plans to sign a few more. They are all constitutional. Every president does this. And with that being said, President Trump did sign 237 executive orders before leaving office. So, there has been a lot of talk on social media of, executive orders aren't constitutional. They're, you can't do that as president. They are constitutional. Every president does. It's a normal presidential power that they have.
Right. And that's just something that we wanted to kind of get across, make sure there's no gray area or misunderstanding as to how the executive orders work. But we do move forward once again, and mentioning President Trump, we get into the impeachment trial that is getting ready to begin. On Monday, January 25th, the article of impeachment was delivered to the Senate. The crime was incitement of insurrection. And we know that the trial can start as soon as February 9th.
There are House-appointed members. We have talked about them before, but just a quick refresh of who they are.
First, we have Representative Jamie Raskin, Democrat from Maryland. Next, we have Representative Diana DeGette, Democrat from Colorado. Next, we have Representative David Cicilline, Democrat from Rhode Island. Next up, we have Representative Joaquin Castro, a Democrat from Texas. Then we have Representative Eric Swalwell, a Democrat from California. Then Representative Ted Lieu, a Democrat also from California. Representative Joe Neguse, a Democrat from Colorado. Then we have Representative Stacey Plaskett, a Democrat from the Virgin Islands. And finally, Representative Madeline Dean, a Democrat from Pennsylvania.
The presiding officer will be Senator Patrick Leahy. He is a Democrat from Vermont. He is currently third in line for presidency and the longest serving member of the majority party.
Since President Trump is no longer the sitting president, the Chief Justice, John Roberts, of the Supreme Court does not preside. Yes, Leahy is a Democrat, but understand the role of the presiding officer during an impeachment trial is not the same as the role of a judge in a criminal trial. The presiding officer is mainly ceremonial.
So the officer reads the questions from senators, recognizes speakers, calls the Senate to order, calls it to recess, and ends the trial. The senators are basically the judge and jury. They also decide the key procedural issues, make legal determinations, and the factual ones. And I'm not saying that the presiding officer makes no decisions, but any call or decision he makes can be overruled. When the articles were delivered, lead prosecutor for the House, Representative Jamie Ruskin, spoke, and here is a little tidbit of that.
Donald John Trump engaged in high crimes and misdemeanors by inciting violence against the government of the United States. In the months preceding the joint session, President Trump repeatedly issued false statements asserting that the presidential election results were the product of widespread fraud and should not be accepted by the American people. Shortly before the joint session commenced, President Trump addressed a crowd at the Ellipse in Washington, D.C. There, he reiterated false claims that we won this election and we won it by a landslide. He also willfully made statements that in context encouraged and foreseeably resulted in lawless action at the Capitol, such as, if you don't fight like hell, you're not going to have a country anymore.
With all the talk about the impeachment, the senators have been sworn in. All 100 senators have been sworn in as the jury for the impeachment trial against President Trump. Senator Rand Paul, a Republican from Kentucky, tried to get the case thrown out. This isn't because he didn't think that the case against President Trump had no merit. It was because he believes that procedurally the process is unconstitutional. He believes that holding an impeachment trial for a president, well, former president, he believes that's unconstitutional. Debate was held, a vote was taken, and he lost. And this was a good test to see where Republicans stand on convicting President Trump. 45 Republicans voted to throw out the impeachment trial. This included Senate Minority Leader Mitch McConnell. This is not a vote on the merit of it. This is a vote on the procedure. And now, as we said before, the trial is set to begin on February 9th.
All right, so let's get into some rapid news. I'll kick us off. GameStop, the stock is hit an all-time price this week, and we will have more information about that and why that's happening and what does that mean Tuesday morning on Medium, so make sure you check that out.
And the first full moon was last night, Thursday, January 28th.
Nick, tell us some good news.
All right. So for this episode, we have a story that takes place in San Antonio, Texas. There was a 94-year-old war veteran whose house became inhabitable. But he still loved the house. He had an entire garden with roses dedicated to his wife who had passed. And so didn't want to give up the house. And so his daughter put a post up on Facebook asking for help. Well, the U.S. Military Order of the Purple Heart, they responded to the post, as well as a few other military-based organizations. And they got a bunch of people together to come actually work on the house. In the meantime, this war vet has been living with his daughter. Unfortunately, the project had to be put on hold because of COVID-19 and all the problems that it caused. But this month, the project was started back up again. It's expected to be finished in a month. There's a GoFundMe going on right now with a $5,000 goal to help with some of the repairs. And what's kind of crazy too is that the people working on the house, or the people working to try and fix it, there are veterans from 3 different foreign conflicts. They have veterans from Afghanistan, they have veterans from Iraq, and they have veterans from Vietnam. I thought that was really cool.
Yeah, that is cool. So you're going to have to keep an eye on this story and keep us posted and see how it goes in a month. If the house is all done, if they reach their $5,000 goal. because this sounds like an excellent story that could only get better from here.
I agree. I love this story. It just, it's one of
It's
those little,
veterans helping veterans.
yeah, it's that togetherness aspect of things.
And that rose garden, oh, that's so sweet.
Oh, I know. That broke my heart, I swear.
I wouldn't want to leave my house either.
Nope. Couldn't do it.
With that being said, it is the end of this Friday morning episode. Make sure you follow us on all social medias. The link is in the show notes. If you have a story for us and that you want us to cover, we will cover it first thing Monday morning. DM us on Twitter. But until Monday morning, see you guys. Have a great weekend.
Bye, guys.